Hello and welcome back to another episode here on CapTech. Today we're going to look at scary, haunted Southern Illinois stories in celebration of Halloween. In research for this video, I recently traveled down to what is now very scary Southern Illinois, to Maconda, for the Vulture Fest. Well, it turns out that Vulture Fest isn't really that scary. You could probably even take your kids and dogs. The vultures aren't waiting for everyone to die as much as they're just migrating through beautiful downtown Maconda. However, when riding in the back of a pickup truck while everybody else got to sit in the front, on my way from our cabin in Vienna to the Vulture Fest, we discovered something very scary. That's right, meat gazers. I was able to film this giant white, what looks to be mostly a wrecked horse ghost out by Vienna, Goreville. Really a sight to behold, and apparently I'm not the only one to have seen it, because I filmed this girl at the festival running from it later that day. Now, it may not have been scary for us, but it was probably scary for them. But on the way back, we passed an Amish carriage and sang the Eagles' Take It Easy to them as we passed. And I think the wife looked at the husband and said, "Don't look at him, Ezekiel." But I mean, all we did was sing to him. If they had any problems, we would have helped them. Anyway, not scary for us. Let's move on to the list. What was actually very scary about this year's Vulture Fest is that they ran out of tacos and their toilets were full, like very early. So we were there with a local legend named Lester, who was staying at the campsite with us, and he wrote a song, and here it goes. He said, "We're out of tacos and the toilets are full." Anyway, it was late by the time this singing actually occurred. Anyway, now we're getting into the list of the scary haunted attractions in Southern Illinois other than this year's Vulture Fest.
Tell me, Cap, how was Halloween in Carbondale for you 20 years ago?
Well, thanks for nicely getting me back on track, nice guy Tom. Let me tell you about a haunted scary story from Carbondale 20-some years ago. Wahahaha. My own personal story. I saw a guy dressed in a bunny costume beating people up on the Carbondale Strip in the late 90s. My Halloween stories aren't nearly scary enough, so I'm going to bring in some outside consulting. Here's the doctor from Radom, Illinois, to tell us about the Radom Hayride.
There used to be a haunted hayride in Radom. Sometimes it would rain on the trail where the wagon would go. People would need pulled out of the mud and have to call Professor E-Rock or Mr. Bean to help pull them out. There was a lot of drunken buffoonery. We had chainsaws with a chain off, weed whackers with no string, and other power tools. One fellow had a leaf blower. He would just run up to the wagon and blow straw in the people's face. This one place had a rope tied to a tree. You could fly out and attack the wagon. There was this guy. You know, the guy who was shot with a shotgun wand. He tried swinging from the tree like Tarzan, and landed right into the campfire.
CapTech is your custom video studio of choice. Please feel free to select traditional animation, whiteboard animation, or hybrid. Please reach out to us today at captechstudios@gmail.com or CapTech on Facebook. Now for some spooky stuff. Have y'all heard of the 7 Gates of Hell? There's a whole website devoted to this, thehuntersoftheunknown.com/the 7 Gates of Hell. Basic info though, there's 7 haunted spots that you travel to before midnight, and then you're supposed to see a gate to hell or a ghost or portal, something to that end. Upon further study of the 7 Gates of Hell, CapTech discovered that most of the gates are decommissioned railroad bridges, Here's an example. When you go east on Lebanon Road out of Collinsville, when you get to the 7th gate, a portal will be open, and the hounds of hell will be released. But mostly, people just see cops. Next, how about our own Cahokia Historic State Park, where there has been evidence of human sacrifice. Ha 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 ha! Next, how about Cave-in Rock, which is haunted because of pirate activity. From 1790 to 1834, Cave-in Rock was the principal location for outlaws on the river. Cave-in Rock was an ancient colony of horse thieves, pirates, counterfeiters, and highwaymen who preyed on the Ohio River flatboats and traders. Another place where a lot of crime and murder took place was north of the cave at the infamous tavern called Potts Inn, where a lot of people checked in but never checked out. The Hart brothers, who may have been America's first serial killers, stayed at Cave-in Rock. A generation of counterfeiters from the East, known as the Sturtevant Gang, operated here. The last known gang of pirates was in the 1830s and known as Ford's Ferry Gang. Next, let's look at the Crenshaw House, Equality, Illinois. Crenshaw had slaves here. I don't know if that was before or after. It was named Equality, but the spirits, who may or may not have been the spirits of karma, are said to haunt the place. In Oakville, the original Springs is alleged to be haunted. We talked about Alton in our last video, but it might well be the most haunted town in the United States. And I'm not talking just about naked barmaids here, folks. I'm talking about Mcpike Mansion, which has been featured on TV shows such as Scariest Place on Earth, Ghost Adventures, and The Paranormal Files. Alton is also home to the Piasaw bird, seen by the original settlers and depicted here. I mean, I don't know what exactly they saw, but they saw something. And quick aside here, you can watch CapTech's CryptoZoology video for more on creatures such as this and the Enfield horror monster. What's your favorite Southern Illinois horror story? Do you have a buddy that lived in a haunted house, such as this one here? I did. Comment about it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks again for watching CapTech. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Especially subscribe. Thank you. Hello and welcome to another episode here on CapTech. Today we're going to look at cryptozoology, aliens, and the paranormal throughout the state of Illinois. For those of you that don't know, cryptozoology is a pseudoscience and subculture that aims to prove the existence of entities from folklore records, such as Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, etc. Cryptozoologists refer to these entities as cryptids, a term coined by the subculture. Our first scary story comes from Grand Ridge, Illinois, where a good friend of mine saw a UFO. This is a depiction of that friend, only slightly disguised, who actually said it looked more like a floating house. Although this sighting was unconfirmed by local media, I want to say that it is a very well-established and reliable source that I've used in the past. And we all know that I've traveled all around the state of Illinois making a wide variety of videos, as you see here, but hardly have I come across a source that I trust more than this, so I'm including it in this video. Now you're saying, Cap, what about some stuff that the media has heard about? Well, what about the Tinley Park Triangle? On the NBC News site, it said, "What are the Tinley Park lights?" The skies were clear over Tinley Park on the night of August 21st, 2004. Despite the absence of a breeze, the temperature outside was about as agreeable as you get in the Chicago area. People were having block parties and such. It was a nice night out. Me and my son were on the back deck hanging out when we saw them, this witness says. Tinley Park lights. Not an isolated incident, however, because in the year 2000, the same thing happened near Highland, Illinois, kind of by a bar named the Rail Shake, which incidentally I think has 50-cent purple Hooters shots when a train's actually going by and shaking the bar. You probably wouldn't be able to do it if you're watching this video for the first time, and they may have closed or may not do it anymore. But anyway, there's the train for you, so if you do have time to make some purple Hooters shots, maybe you can do them as it's whizzing by you. But also had the alien sighting there. So. But aliens aren't the only thing that we've seen here in Illinois. In Alton, Illinois, they have the Piazza bird. In the 1700s, a French missionary reported the Indian legend of a weird giant bird to the that the Indians said they had to fight. A mural is painted on the cliff by the Mississippi River. And if you want to read more about Alton, Illinois, there's also bars there, not even strip clubs. Bars there where the waitresses will just happen to have their shirts off or serve you beer naked, even though it's not a strip club. So anyway, that's my thing on Alton, Illinois. Next, we also have Black Panther sightings in southern Illinois, and these are popping up more and more. As you guys probably know, scientists and experts will tell you that there's only these types of creatures in Asia, South America, etc. And big cats in North America are cougars. North American cougars supposedly have never been captured alive or dead with a black coat. So if you saw a Black Panther in Illinois, they'll look at you like you saw a Bigfoot, which is also real. In the 70s, there were many reports of the Big Muddy Monster in Murfreesboro. It was a hairy Bigfoot that got so famous they have a beer festival named there after him. Then there's been Bigfoot sightings in Anna Jonesboro in the Shawnee Forest area, which might be bear sightings or large hillbillies in the woods picking ginger, you never know. Whichever it is, you should probably not get too close to these creatures. The next mystery in Illinois comes from Enfield. Do they really have a Mule Day? Where the hell is it? Well, those aren't actually the mysteries. Check this out. In April 1973, a young boy is attacked by a very strange creature in his Enfield, Illinois backyard. Soon after, another family encounters the odd creature that tries to break into their house. What was this horror that stalked the people and homes of the Enfield area and railroad? Now, for the lesser-known cryptoids that are like the X-Files, only they don't get any press, like the Winkle Turd Bird. The Winkle Turd Bird is just like the, and I know I'm mispronouncing this here, Piazza bird in Alton. People around Swanwick and Winkle, Illinois report a giant crazy bird that swoops close to them and tries to crap on them. It has also been witnessed trying to carry away small dogs, dingoes, and children. Just horrifying, but it doesn't get any publicity outside the area. Another cryptoid bird is the Posen Peacock. It hides a lot in the day, but can be seen late at night. It has a large feathered mane and seems to be attracted to stag beer. Woodlawn, Illinois, not only is home to the famous Hales Boys, but also to another urban or rural legend, another cryptoid called the Two-Headed Rat, which I believe they have in a hidden museum at their clubhouse. Also, Hoyleton, Illinois, has their own Sasquatch mythology separate from that of the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. And I personally have a buddy that has lived in this home by Radom, Illinois, and it's clearly haunted. I mean, numerous people have heard voices and don't want to talk about it. Just weird stuff. But if you ever go into the bar on the other side of these tracks, maybe, I don't know, check it out. Further north in Streator, Illinois, it's believed the town has a large reptoid population. And here in Ottawa, on the Illinois River, we have a captain, which we'll call Captain Hulkamaniac. It depends if he's on whiskey or beer, which version of him you're going to get. Beer's a lot friendlier than whiskey. And this pirate truly is scary. He will mount your ship, especially if you're a new boater or not from there. And just, I've seen people go back to Chicago crying they caught him on the whiskey. So I wanted to give a shout out to our local legend here in Ottawa, Captain Hulkamaniac, who I am changing the name of so he doesn't kill me next time he's on the whiskey. It's easy enough for him to run me down in his many ships. I do have a little nice to say about him. He introduced me to the Mai Tai here at this place, but then I found out it was the only place where he really wasn't banned. So anyway, be careful, but you might run into that. You can't blame the guy once you take his boat club away and he loses his own dog mascot. Can turn a pirate mean. So here's a shout out to you, Captain Hulkamaniac. Anyway, thanks for watching. CapTech is now on Twitter, Patreon, where you can donate extra money if you like. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're also on Facebook. Again, hitting on the please subscribe to the level of begging, both by infant as well as dog. Anyway, thanks for watching CapTech. Hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day. The end. Hello, and welcome to another episode here on CapTech. I had a few topics that I wanted to lead the new year off with, since I really can't get up to YouTube's minimum threshold of subscribers required to make any money on this, despite these clever animations. I thought maybe I would focus on videos that helped my life or made my life a little easier this year. So with that, I wanted to dedicate this particular video to Austin, who keeps asking me to tell her the story of Gladys.
Tell me a story about Gladys, Daddy.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and tell the great story of Gladys in 3 distinct parts. Even if you're not Austin, I invite you to stay around and see if you enjoy this very scary story. Otherwise, maybe I can listen to music when her and I go on walks instead of having to repeat the same story to her every time. I am dressed this way primarily to entertain you, Austin, but your grandmother who gave me this story originally, was Norwegian, so I thought a Viking was appropriate, and it takes place in a very Norwegian area. Anyway, with that, let's go ahead and dive in. Should give a little bit of a business dedication to Quentin Tarantino. You may or may not remember me, but we hung out in the same bar, Headhunters, down in Austin, and I thought maybe that we could make this story into like a less kid-friendly version that was kind of more of a bloodbath. Anyway, if you want to collaborate on such a thing, you'd be surprised with how cheap you could get my time for. I mean, I'd just do it for points on the movie, you know. Anyway, with that, let's really dive in. So the story starts a long, long time ago when your great-grandmother, born Halloween night, roughly 100 years ago, in Scandinavia, Wisconsin. Remember I mentioned earlier, or the Viking mentioned earlier, about everyone being of Nordic heritage in the area. Anyway, since my grandmother was born there, my father would take me nearby as a kid to the Wapaka and King area where there's plenty to do, area where I've taken you, Austin, several times. Never you, Mr. Tarantino, but I highly recommend it. Anyway, on the way to Scandinavia to see where my grandmother grew up, they would point this old house out to me that was the first house built in the area before there were motor vehicles, before there was electricity commonly available, and it was basically, by the time my grandmother was growing up, a house in the middle of a field that was always dark, owned by an elderly couple. You know, sharp-looking lady, you know, portrayed here. Wasn't known to be a looker, really. A mean old lady, like I said, pretty accurately portrayed in the image of me here as Gladys. My grandmother and her two sisters eventually decided to go check out the house. There wasn't a lot of kids around town. A lot of them were getting deployed overseas for the big war at that time. And my grandma and her two sisters, Agnes and Kay, went and checked it out. They walked all the way to the house. They left themselves plenty of daylight, as legend has it. But yet it still seemed to get dark by the time they arrived at the house, having to walk through largely grown-over fields. To their surprise, the front door was shut, closed, but not locked. And after knocking for a spell, they went in, despite the warnings of the man down at the co-op in Scandinavia. Quick aside, that's where, Austin, your great-grandfather was hit by a drunk driver, I believe, many years ago. Back to the story. The owner of the co-op warned the girls against going to check out this house, Gladys's house. But they went anyway. And when they went in, it was dusty but clean. They looked around the kitchen. There was some very old food, but it looked like nobody had been in the house for 20 years. Eventually they went upstairs. They found two kids' rooms that were largely full of toys that were just dusty, but it was overall clean. Maybe an animal or two had gotten in over the years. And then legend has it, and you gotta know my grandmother was a pretty reasonable person, but legend has it they went and looked in the master bedroom and saw an old lady in that master bedroom who was sitting at a vanity mirror brushing her hair, and she did not look either threatened by these people being in her house or upset. She just kept brushing her hair in the mirror. This freaked my grandmother out, and her two sisters ran away and didn't tell anybody about it for several years. When they finally did, it was the owner of the store, or the owner of the co-op, and they said, yeah, you know, we hate to admit it, but we went in there and we saw an old lady. We don't know, if it was just some old drifter coming through town, or if that, if she never died, the people that lived in that house, or what the story was. And the owner of the co-op stopped and got a very fearful look in his eyes and looked straight at my grandmother and said, yes, that was my mother's house, but she died 20 years ago. You just described a woman that was sitting where my mother always sat, doing what my mother often did, and, from the looks of it, sounded like his mother, but she had been dead for decades. So this was very perplexing for my grandmother, who, although being born on Halloween night, that's one of the many true facts that can be proven of this, this story, this, Kappelman family folklore. Anyway, she never went back to the house again, and it took her years before she would speak of it. But in the next chapter, you'll see what's going to happen in the legend of Gladys. Alright, I'm Popoff CapTech, telling this story to a 4-year-old under protest. I believe my boy was 9 when I told him this story on a vacation to Wapaka, as it was relayed to me. My mother eventually told her brothers what she saw in the house. The sisters, Agnes, Kay, and Dorothy, told the brothers, Bud, Doug, and let's call him Chunk, because nicknames of that long ago are no longer PC, These three men had come back from the war, wanted to see this Gladys, or the old lady in the room combing her hair. They believed my grandma, so they went and checked it out. Doug was the leader, and Bud was right behind him. Chunk just kind of followed along. They got out there, looked up in the room right away, did not see the lady, but then they were getting ready to leave, very disappointed. Without seeing anything paranormal, just kind of creepy. The house still looked clean but dusty. And they saw that the basement door was slightly ajar. Now, they happened to have had the job of digging graves in the war, and they had done that long enough to know that some of the dirt in the basement, which it happened to be a basement that just had a dirt floor, that some of it looked like it hadn't been touched for hundreds of years, and some of it looked like it had been touched, they couldn't tell exactly, but much more recently. So they decided they would dig, and they found 3 little skeletons, approximately 10-year-old boys, in the basement. Upon further review, they were determined all 3 to be brothers, but there was no grave for Gladys. Further research revealed that the father of the children had been incarcerated on some local violent attacks, not related to these children, but he had eventually died in prison, and they did know where he was buried, along with these kids. They knew where 3 of them were buried, although the bodies of Gladys and a 4th boy were never found. Stay tuned now for Chapter 3, and we'll see how DNA opens up this mystery, or does it? Many years later, new DNA testing technology would reveal the 3 boys in the basement were indeed brothers, and the man from the co-op was also a brother. He had confessed later on his deathbed that he always suspected his mother of wanting to kill the boys when they turned 10. He couldn't prove anything, so he ran away because she always said that their daddy was the devil. Interesting twist, though. Although Gladys's body was never found, the church requested the DNA of Gladys's husband and compared it against a sample of someone else who hundreds of years before claimed to be the devil, and somebody recent that had claimed to be the devil, and they all showed very similar DNA, as if they had the same father or grandfather as these other people. So that mystery is still ongoing, as are many other mysteries involving cutting-edge DNA technology, such as the bunny-carny hybrid I've chosen to present this last portion in. So those are the first 3 chapters in the legend of Gladys. We'll have to see if any more are unveiled, how much of it is true, how much of it is false, and how much of it can you believe. Scary stuff. Thank you for watching this video today, Quentin Tarantino and Austin Kappelman.
Okay, so there was a unicorn, and I'm a rainbow unicorn forever. And then I saw a dog, and that they were rainbow, and a bunny was a rainbow. And then I had rainbow skin, then pink skin, and then I borrowed to another girl, then another boy, then the brother sister. And then I was hopping, then I had a horn, then I got a yellow horn, and then pink, and then rainbow. Yeah, they're all the horns I got to pick you. Subscribe to Tech Tech, please.
Alright. If I ever got up to 1,000 subscribers, we could make some more scary content. Is it for kids? Is it for adults? Is it fiction? Is it fact? We don't frickin' know.